The Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra has one of the best camera setups out there. So how does it compare against Apple's latest iPhone 17 Pro Max? Well, I've just returned from the Snapdragon Summit in Hawaii, where I've taken hundreds of photos to fully test and compare these cameras. And technically, the S25 Ultra does have much better specs on paper. A 200 megapixel main camera as opposed to 48, then also two telephoto cameras, a 3x and a 5x as opposed to a single 4x on the iPhone, and a 50 megapixel ultra-wide camera with a larger f1.9 aperture as opposed to the iPhone's 48 megapixel f2.2 aperture ultra-wide. But nowadays, it's all about the image processing, so let's see which one comes out on top. First off, the main cameras. And let's start with a few daylight photos. In this first one, both look great, but the iPhone shot is a tiny bit sharper and more detailed if we take a look at the palm tree on the top of the photo, or this tile towards the bottom. You can clearly see that the iPhone's texture is more defined. That's because the iPhone shoots at 24 megapixels by default as opposed to 12 on the S25 Ultra. Now, sure, you can switch the Samsung to shoot at 50 or even 200, but then your lens selection will be restricted. In the second photo, again, both look great, but the S25 Ultra has a bit more noise in the darker areas, such as the back of this cart, although it does have more shadow detail. And in this third photo, we do get some really nice natural depth of field on both. However, the S25 Ultra is a bit softer, and it doesn't have as much depth of field as the iPhone, if we take a look at the sleeve and the background behind it. When it comes to darker shots, such as this indoor shot, both did really well. But again, the S25 Ultra has much more noise in the top. The iPhone's shot is also a bit brighter, even though none of them activated their night modes. However, the S25 Ultra does retain more highlight detail in the artwork, and it is also noticeably wider, something that I've just noticed now. In the second example, we have a photo of this delicious steak, and here I do prefer the iPhone, as it's brighter and also with significantly less noise if you look at the plate. You can even see the texture of the glass. The extra resolution of the iPhone does make a huge difference here. So far, it doesn't look too promising for the S25 Ultra, but let's take a look at these night shots, which the iPhone will now take in 12 megapixels as well. In this first shot with the Aloha sign, this is by the way a very difficult one to take, as you have the bright LEDs in a very dark scene. The S25 Ultra has a lot more noise in the darker areas of the photo, and it also did a worse job when it comes to exposing the light bulbs on the side. However, in the second shot, the S25 Ultra did a better job, as the texture on the tree trunk is better defined, and the light on the right isn't quite as blown out as it is on the iPhone. Plus, the bar area is also much better exposed on the Samsung, which the iPhone does blow out. Also, the Samsung does look higher res this time, despite both being 12 megapixels. Now, back to daylight. If we test the 2x sensor crop zoom on both main modules, the S25 Ultra not only has better colors, but also less noise, and a sharper image overall. When it comes to taking high-resolution photos, Samsung does have an edge. No pun intended, as it does take 200 megapixel photos compared to the iPhone's 48 megapixels. And the file sizes do reflect this, as the Samsung is 62 megabytes as opposed to 13 on the iPhone. And there's definitely a lot more detail in the S25 Ultra's shot. Just take a look at the balcony and the palm tree and this patch in the sand where you can almost see the bits of individual sand on the Samsung. But which one has more dynamic range? Well, taking a look at these raw photos, they look okay right out of the gate, but after editing them, I was able to recover a lot more detail on the iPhone. Just take a look at the texture on the ground here. It also looks much better on the iPhone. So if you plan on shooting raw to edit your photos later, then the iPhone is the way to go. Hello and welcome to a back video test with a main camera between the iPhone 17 Pro Max and the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. So let me know which one looks better, which one has better highlight detail and better shadow detail, and then also let me know which one sounds better. Is it the S25 Ultra or is it the iPhone 17 Pro Max? And now I'm just gonna run and you let me know which one stabilizes the footage better. Now, when it comes to video, both phones deliver a good result. However, I do prefer the more contrasty look from the iPhone, which also has superior stabilization when walking. There's also some noticeable jitter when panning upward on the Samsung, which does take away from the experience. Also, the iPhone does have superior highlight detail if you look here. Now, when it comes to night video, there's a really big difference here, with way more noise in the shadows on the Samsung. The lights are also blown out a lot more compared to the iPhone, and the video itself isn't quite as smooth. again, I can see a bit of jitter on the S25 Ultra when panning the camera around. So, having said all of this, the award for the best main camera goes to the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Not only do we get sharper daytime photos, but we also get much better video in both day and night. Samsung was better at high-res photos and also at 2x sensor crop zoom photos. Also, the night photos did look sharper on it too. However, in every other scenario, the iPhone 17 Pro Max was superior. Which brings me to the telephoto. Now, the iPhone 17 Pro Max comes with a brand new 48 megapixel telephoto, a big upgrade from last year's 12 megapixel sensor, but the optical zoom actually drops from 5x to 4x, so we'll have to see how that plays out against Samsung's 3x and 5x modules. Starting off at 3x, the iPhone has to digitally zoom in from its main sensor, while the S25 Ultra is using its dedicated 3x module. And yes, you do get way more detail on the Samsung's shot. Just take a look at the top of the leaves, or at the trunk of the palm tree, which also has more shadow detail as well. But onto 4x. Apple's new 4x telephoto is much sharper and more detailed than Samsung's photo, which was actually taken using that 3x telephoto plus digitally zooming in. We also get a bit more natural depth of field coming from the larger telephoto sensor on the iPhone. Just take a look at how well the palm tree is separated from the background. At 5x, however, the tables have turned, as now the iPhone 17 Pro Max has to zoom in digitally to get a 5x shot, whereas the S25 Ultra has a dedicated 5x module. However, the difference isn't as big as I was expecting it to be. Technically, the S25 Ultra does have a tiny bit more detail in the shot, but not by much, especially considering that the iPhone only has a 4x lens. And I also prefer the overall warmer colors on the iPhone's shot, but let me know, what do you guys think? At 10x, we do see quite a bit more detail on the S25 Ultra if we zoom into the tiny white flowers inside of the pink ones. Although the Samsung photo does look a bit over-processed. And I also prefer the iPhone when it comes to the shadows. It looks a bit warmer and it's also a bit more detailed. Now, if we go all the way up to 40x, which is the maximum that the iPhone can do, then yeah, there's no competition. The iPhone really messed this photo up, and I've taken this multiple times with the exact same outcome. The S25 Ultra is much sharper and way more detailed, so a big win for Samsung here. Although, interestingly enough, at 100x, I do prefer the iPhone's shot. Don't get me wrong, they are both terrible, but at least the water has some detail to it, and it's not completely crushed like it is on Samsung, which seems to have used AI processing a bit too much here. So what about the telephoto at night? Well, here's a 5x zoom test, and yeah, the iPhone's definitely better here. First of all, the shadows aren't as crushed. The rope looks more detailed, and then the rocks look significantly more detailed, and the image itself is also brighter and more usable. At 20x, they're both bad, but if I had to only pick one, it would probably be the iPhone, as the grass has more texture as opposed to the Samsung, which is quite soft. And this bush here also has more detail. And if we take some video samples at 10x zoom during the night, of course they're both pretty bad, but the Samsung is even worse, with a ton of noise. It even struggles to focus hunting all the time, so I do prefer the iPhone here, as it is a bit more usable. And finally, we have 20x zoom video during the day, and they're both pretty bad here. The Samsung is super noisy and overly processed, while the iPhone is just way too soft, so I do prefer the Samsung here. Even if it is a bit over-processed and over-sharpened, at least we can make up some more details that are completely lacking on the iPhone, such as the sail ropes on the right-hand side of the boat. But overall, the winner for the best telephoto is the S25 Ultra. I do actually prefer the daytime zoom photos coming out of it, although at night, the iPhone's larger telephoto sensor is noticeably better. And even though that 10x telephoto on the Samsung is pretty poor, it is still better than the iPhone's 3x digital zoom. Also, if you want to keep your iPhone 17 protected, our sponsor Spigen has you covered, with their incredible range of iPhone accessories to keep your devices protected in every style. This ultra hybrid T-Mac fit matches my iPhone 17 Pro perfectly, offering a slim protection, MagFit magnets, and a camera control button too. As well as this, the Ultra Hybrid Neo 1 has their iconic teardown design that I absolutely love, with a TPU bumper for grip and protection. Then their low-key Ultra Hybrid Frost is also stunning, with this frosted matte design. However, I think for our upcoming battery drain test, the Tough Armor T-Mac fit will be my pick, as it's got dual layer protection, XRD foam, and a camera control button, so I can make sure that everything goes smoothly. Check out Spigen's range of cases by using the links below. So what about their front cameras? Well, the iPhone now has a brand new 18 megapixel square sensor with an f1.9 aperture compared to a more traditional 12 megapixel sensor with a smaller f2.2 aperture on the S25 Ultra. This means that the iPhone gets some really cool tricks up its sleeve. For example, you can now take both vertical and landscape photos whilst keeping your phone in vertical orientation. You've also got center stage tracking for FaceTime calls, but yeah, let's talk about the quality first. And as you can probably see, the iPhone 17 Pro Max has a much wider viewing angle thanks to its center stage camera. Even the water looks better, and the sky isn't as blown out as on the S25 Ultra. I mean, you can even make out the sun here. Okay, so this is a front-facing video test between the iPhone 17 Pro Max and the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. First of all, let me know which one looks better. Take a look at the highlights, take a look at the shadows. Let me know which one retains more detail, and then also which one sounds better. So this is the sound coming out of the iPhone 17 Pro Max, and this is the sound coming out of the S25 Ultra. Now, I'm just gonna run for a bit, and you let me know which one has a better stabilization. So the much wider field of view coming from the iPhone is the main difference here, as well as the S25 Ultra's video being a lot brighter, which, you know, I do quite like. It pops more, although it does blow out the sky in the scene pretty badly. As for the microphone, the S25 Ultra does cancel out a lot of the background noise, but then it also makes my voice sound way more robotic. As for night selfies, I do like the look of the Samsung a lot more. It doesn't make me orange, and you can see more detail in the balconies above me, especially in the rooms that aren't lit, whereas the iPhone completely crushed the details. Same goes for the sunbeds behind me, and the table, and the plant to my left. They are both much clearer on the Samsung. But overall, the award for the best front camera goes to the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Aside from the night selfie, which was better on the Samsung, I much preferred the wider angle of the iPhone and the superior video quality. Plus, this is incredible for group selfies, which you can also take in landscape orientation too. So yeah, big win for the iPhone here, and I'm pretty sure that we will see more manufacturers adopt this new squared-off sensor in the near future. Now, we've still got the Ultrawide to compare, but before that, I also want to try out portrait mode to see which one does it better when using their telephoto modules. And here I much prefer the Samsung. Not only is it more zoomed in thanks to having a 5x module, but we also get more background blur. The S25 Ultra did a bit better when it comes to separating my hair from the background. Also, my face is smoother. I kind of look 74 years old on the iPhone for some reason. Plus, I also prefer the colors on the Samsung, as the iPhone is just way too warm for my taste. As for pet portraits, we have this photo of Ren, and I do like the colors of the iPhone, but overall, Samsung has better edge detection, as it can clearly separate individual strands of hair from the background, something that the iPhone still struggles with. Now, when it comes to objects, again, I do like that the iPhone's photo is a lot more detailed and colorful, but it falls short of the Samsung when it comes to the edge detection, which is just flawless here. And if you like to take portraits at night, then the Samsung is the clear winner here. The photo is much sharper, brighter, while the iPhone's shot is extremely noisy, as it doesn't do night mode when you're using portraits at night. For portrait selfies, both look very similar, although the blur fall off is more gradual, and it seems more natural on the iPhone. Just take a look at my shirt here. Same goes for the tree, which the iPhone blurred gradually, whereas the Samsung kinda messed up here. Still, overall, the winner for the best portraits is the S25 Ultra. Not only do we have a closer zoom range and more depth when using its 5x module, but we also get way superior edge separation. But yeah, let me know which one do you guys prefer down below. Now, if you're thinking of ordering a new iPhone 17, you'll also need an awesome wallpaper to go for it. And we offer the best wallpapers on the market through our app, WallpaperZ. All of our designs are 1x1 8K made by our designers, so you can use them on any device. Some designs even take months to make. The first wallpaper of each pack is completely free, with over 200 free wallpapers to choose from, and we also offer no ads at all. So you can download WallpaperZ for free today by using the links below. Which brings us to the final camera module, the Ultrawide. And in this first shot, the S25 Ultra's photo is brighter, and it also pops more, but as soon as you start looking closer, you can see that the iPhone is actually sharper, as once again, the iPhone shoots at a default 24 megapixel resolution as opposed to 12 on the Samsung. And while I can switch Samsung to 50, that will remove a bunch of zoom options, like 2x, 3x, and 10x, so I usually keep it set to the default 12, like probably most of you will as well. In the second example, the iPhone is once again sharper, as the S25 Ultra distorted the grass here quite significantly. For lower light conditions, Samsung takes the edge. Although the image isn't as bright as the iPhone, it also doesn't have as much noise when you take a look at these lights. As for dynamic range when shooting RAW, here are the original shots, and here are the after shots after I tried recovering as much highlight and shadow detail. And I generally cannot see much difference, aside from the more vibrant colors on the Samsung, and the iPhone also being sharper if you take a look at the grass in the bottom right here. However, when it comes to dynamic range, they are pretty much the same. So what about nighttime? Well, in this first example, they both did quite poorly, but the Samsung's photo is just a tiny bit better. The bush is a bit more detailed, and so are the palm trees. Although the iPhone isn't as noisy when you take a look at the sky. And in the second photo, I do like that the sky is completely dark on the iPhone, whereas on the S25 Ultra, the sky is quite grayish, as the camera probably couldn't separate the bright blue coming from the pool from the darkness of the sky. However, the S25 Ultra has considerably more shadow detail in the foreground. There's also a bit more detail on the Samsung if you zoom into these umbrellas. Now, the ultrawide cameras can also be used for taking macro photos, and what I've noticed here is that I was able to get way closer with the iPhone, but it also had a narrower focus point. Both did a really good job, although personally I do prefer the iPhone here. Now, when it comes to 4K 60 video taken with the ultrawide camera, the biggest difference is in terms of colors. The S25 Ultra is way more vibrant, with the iPhone being quite washed out, but I do feel like the iPhone is a bit smoother, and the transition from bright sunlight to the shadows is a bit smoother too. Also, if you take a look at a grass here, the iPhone is sharper as well. As for 4K 60 at night, using the ultrawide, the S25 Ultra is much noisier, while the iPhone is softer but also smoother. Yeah, not a great result on either, but the iPhone definitely does better here. So overall, the winner for the best ultrawide is the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Thanks to its sharper images, more fluid video, and also superior night video performance. However, the S25 Ultra wasn't bad here either, especially when it came to night ultrawide photos. However, there are a couple of more things to test out, specifically some special modes that they each have. So let's start with log video, this super flat profile that you can then edit further later. Apple can also do ProRes and ProRes RAW, also in log 2 for even more dynamic range. However, after grading them, I actually don't see much difference in dynamic range. If anything, Samsung actually seems to have more shadow detail that's recoverable, which is really impressive considering that Samsung's footage is also 5 times smaller. Both phones can also record slow motion at 4K 120, and even though I do prefer the colors on the Samsung here, as it's much brighter and punchier, the iPhone is more stabilized. And you can even see the individual water droplets as opposed to the Samsung. The S25 Ultra can also shoot in 8K at 30 FPS, something that the iPhone still cannot do for whatever reason. And comparing the 8K footage coming from the Samsung to the one on the iPhone, I mean, it is sharper, but it's also really washed out, so I do actually prefer the iPhone's 4K footage here. The iPhone can also shoot in OpenGate, or the full aspect ratio of the sensor, if you use an app like Final Cut Camera, which means that you can then reframe that footage for both vertical and horizontal orientation. Then we've got cinematic mode, where the Samsung messed up really badly in this scenario where I was filming some ducks, because it just blurred them out. Well, the iPhone did recognize that they were the subject in the first couple of seconds, and yeah, the iPhone did not blur them, only the background. The Samsung also added a halo effect over this sign that does look quite bad, so yeah, definite win for the iPhone here. And if you're a fan of astrophotography, then the iPhone is probably better for you as well. In this example, which was handheld for 10 seconds, you can see a lot more stars as compared to the S25 Ultra, with the tree also being much sharper. While in the second example, which was taken on a tripod for 30 seconds, again, the iPhone managed to do a much better job, as the image just doesn't break apart in the middle. We can also see more stars, and the foreground is sharper too. So when it comes to these special modes, the winner is the iPhone 17 Pro Max, which is superior in literally all of them. So in conclusion, while both the iPhone 17 Pro Max and the S25 Ultra are extremely impressive when it comes to their camera systems, if I only had to pick one, it would be the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Yes, the portrait mode was way better on the S25 Ultra, and so was the telephoto, although not quite as big of a difference here. In all other cases, such as the main module, the ultrawide front camera, and the special modes, the iPhone had a better image, especially when it came to video. The only other area in which I would say Samsung is superior is the camera app. It's way more advanced, and you've also got the Expert RAW app as well, which offers a ton of functionality. But let me know in the comments, what do you guys think? I'm Daniel, this has been ZONEofTECH, and I'll see you guys in the next one. ZONEofTECH, signing out. Cheers!